put in there? Oh,
Oh,
I actually made an intro video for us.
dag nabbit. I know. I saw the video. It was great.
Yeah.
And now we're live. And if you're watching this live and you can't see the intro video,
That's because we're rank amateurs at this.
I was gonna say we are trained professionals.
Trained professional. Rank amateurs. Yeah. Be real here. Let's just be real. I mean, yeah, given the topic today, this power of yeah, making sure that the process is designed in order to deliver a quality product on the backside here. Oops.
Oh well. It was all good intentions. Completely good intentions. Oh,
we are our best guinea pigs here.
All right.
Well, how you doing today? Welcome. Power of you.
Let's do this thing.
Yeah.
You.
Power of you.
You. What exactly is a ute? Anyway.
A ute.
Pardon me. Pardon me.
My cousin Vinny here.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway.
What do we have today, Dawn? We're going to be looking at this. Yeah, this one. Now I'm going to, tip of the hat here to you. You put together a good chunk of this stuff, and I first ran across J. Edwards or W. Edwards Deming.
Yeah.
Back in goodness gracious, would have been the mid 80s, I think, when I started doing early 80s when I started doing a lot of work in Japan.
Yeah.
And I came across something called the Deming Prize.
Oh yeah.
And it was a big deal because we were doing a lot of work with some manufacturing firms and whatnot, when I was over there. And the Deming Prize, I come to find out it's the equivalent of the Baldrige Award here in the States. And I don't know if you're familiar with the backstory of Deming's, how he ended up in Japan.
He got summoned is what I'm enough to know that it was the end of World War II. World War II had come and gone, and they were trying to get it all put back together because of the value of the Japanese economy and rebuild it. And they summoned him to Japan. He got called, come to Japan.
He got noticed. It was interesting. You're never a hero in your own backyard.
Right.
He had this data. He had this manufacturing data, this quality control, or this total quality profile.
TQM,
and he couldn't get anybody to pay attention to him here in the States.
Right.
This is back in the 50s. And it's kind of like, hey, America, we got the answer to everything. We don't need. Yeah, you just go in your corner and play with your stuff. So if you want to take a look at the Japanese Japan Inc., the ascendancy of Japan Inc., a large part of it had to do with Deming.
Oh yeah.
It was so we're putting this in the context of leadership. How do you influence? How do you influence? Because Deming was relatively mild-mannered. From what every story I've heard about him, he didn't do fire and brimstone. He's not what you would have thought of as a world-changing leader.
Right.
But he changed the world.
Yeah.
In some very interesting ways. So we're going to be looking at through the lens of Mr. Deming's
Mr. Deming's
purpose.
Yeah, it's funny because at the in putting this together, you and I talked about this a while back about this idea about Deming, but I was recalling it was 1992, and I was at that time I was CEO of a company called Datacom, and we were doing global implementations and large corporate implementations of computer systems, and we were doing technology change outs for these large companies. And I was just young pup, gray hair, pre-gray hair, black. I still had black hair in those days and a cool black mustache. And I drove a Jag, and we had a company jet, and it was really cool stuff. And Xerox was one of my clients, and there was a chip manufacturing here in El Segundo, which nobody ever really knew they were manufacturing chips here because of the cyanide and things that they forgot to tell the state that they actually used inside of a neighborhood, like right across the street from an elementary school. So
a super fun site now.
Yeah, another story. But the guy there, his name was Dr. Jesse Carter, and Jesse I was doing a rollout in converting Xerox's technology at the time, which was a different computer system, and they had their own operating system. We were converting them over to DOS and Novell NetWare, all kinds of stuff in the background. That's old. But Jesse wanted, and it wasn't going well. It was not. We were working with Xerox PARC back in the days when that was like the think tank for the world, and
that was
And Jesse called me into his office one day and said two things. I want you to be an adjunct professor, which means watch me teach at the UCLA School of Business. Come watch me. You're going to watch me teach, and you're going to learn everything I say. And I want you to go read this book on TQM from Deming. And slapped that book on me and began to quiz me on Deming. And it changed my perspective, to radically change the flow of and ultimately we actually ended with a successful implementation, because we went and did TQM, and we did all the Deming principles, all 14, and it worked. So thinking back, when we're talking about leadership and the things that we're doing and our definition of leadership, which we'll get into, and it's kind of when you and I are, readers of transformation, so we know about immutable laws. There are immutable laws, and when you think about that, all of these things hook together. So I'm hoping, for those of you watching today for Power of You, this is a kind of a throwback with a modern twist around, hey, here are these things from Deming as we move into leadership, and here's the conversation, because it is that we're going to talk about only 3 of the 14 today. This is a multi-part series.
Multi-part series. I love it. Multi-part series. We kind of build on them.
Yet again. But it's when you think about it, when you think about mindset, quality, and purpose, as we talk about it today, right? It is protecting that long-term vision from short-term chaos. Chaos is going to happen.
Yep.
There's no
Here at the end.
Yeah, it's death and taxes, baby.
Actually, when you think about it, I mean, leadership, when you strip it down to bare bones, because leadership's all about movement. By definition, it does cause, when you start leading, you're causing chaos because you're disrupting the system.
It's a great statement, because that's exactly it. That's exactly what you're seeking some chaos.
Yeah.
Right. Without chaos,
pattern, something new is possible.
Yeah. And it's funny because it did kind of ground me back to that second bullet about systems and processes, so that teams have that they can, that you can trust. And you and I talk about this. In the ACT model, that last pillar of trust, and in my 4 pillars, we talk about trust and leaning in. That's your cornerstone. That's your place, and the things that have to go around it. And that's what Deming did. That's why he went from, and it was funny you mentioned that, because he had written some papers in the US, I know.
Yeah.
And he was virtually anonymous. He was just this think dude. And then they sent him to Japan. And then out of that came kaizen, and came all the other stuff that went along with it. But it is the systems that empower that ability to create trust and maintain trust. And then, of course, the tone of activity linked to purpose, and we'll talk about activity and purpose here today. We talk about it every time.
Yeah, we're going to get granular today.
And, oh my goodness, yeah.
And the idea of the power of you, Deming was a guy. I mean, he was just one guy.
It's just a guy, yeah.
And he was real unassuming. He had you think about a nerd. Statistics was his life. I mean, and
he was that.
You don't have George Patton out there thumping his chest and doing all kinds of stuff. You've got Edwards Deming out there going, Right. The power of you, the power of one person that goes, I've got an idea. Let's run with it. See where we can take it. Mindset,
great point,
quality, and purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, I love his story, and I love what he ended up producing. So this is going to be fun. It's not enough to do your best. Now think about it. This is a fascinating quote. I mean, it stopped me when I read it, because I had to go back and go, wait a minute. Yeah, it's not enough to do your best. You must know what to do and then do your best. Now, when you start thinking about it in those terms, most people want to do the best job that they know how to do at any given point in time. I mean, most people will, when you ask them, genuinely, they will. They like to do a good job more often than not. This is where the for the sake of what comes into play. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that here when we start looking at how we define leadership. But it's not just enough to do your best. You got to know what to do. What's it linked to? And that kind of goes back to the whole notion of purpose. That it goes back to the whole notion of a quality delivery at the end of the conversation or at the end of the process. What's the purpose? What's the outcome that we're tracking for? What's the conditions of satisfaction that make it happen?
Right.
Then you do your best to ensure that that process, the small little pieces, are assembled correctly and in the right sequence.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a powerful sentence. Similarly, when I found that quote, it stopped me. It was wait a minute. Hang on.
Hang on there. Yeah, let's back the truck up here.
Hang on.
So we're looking at this through the lens of leadership. And, like I said right at the very beginning here, he was called to, well, as you mentioned, Dylan, he was literally summoned to Japan. Industry leaders said, we got to rebuild, this following World War II. We've got to rebuild. How do we do this most effectively? And they found out about this guy, said, hey, onegaishimasu, come here, please come. And he came over, and through influence, not through command and control, he had no political power. He had no positional power. All he had was influencing. The process of influencing others in order to co-create, he took something that somebody had as an idea, Mr. Mitsubishi or Mr. Sony, Akio Morita, whatever the idea was, how do we actually generate quality out of this? Because at that point in time, and I'm old enough to remember that Japanese products were the laughingstock of the world.
Remember?
Yeah.
It's like you would never buy Japanese products.
Yeah, made in Japan.
Right.
And then something seismic shift occurred. And it ended up, literally eating American, American in some cases, very truly European manufacturing for lunch. Japan Inc. was a behemoth. It was a juggernaut.
Yep.
That wasn't an accident. There was co-creation that came into play there that was a consequence of how he was influencing people's mindset to think differently. And they didn't do it without, a little bit of conflict, a little bit of tension. Yeah. But they created coordinated movement.
Yeah.
And the idea here was not to make money. The idea was to rebuild Japan, the worthy ideal. Can people get behind that worthy ideal?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you talk from that perspective, because that really was at the root of it, which is, and we'll talk about worthy ideal in a second, that for the sake of what? That was the purpose. We had because of the result of the war, most of Japanese had no economy, had no ability to generate an economy, just because of the amount of, that's what wars do.
Yeah, the amount of destruction they had. I mean, literally, they had to rebuild everything.
Right.
Which was a blessing in disguise, because the status quo did not exist in terms of range, in terms of all of that stuff. Let's rebuild it with an ideal in mind. And productivity was one part of it. Performance was certainly a part of it. But for the sake of what are we doing this? Really was the linchpin, I think.
Yeah,
it was the piece that was the difference. And we talked about this last week. It was the difference that made the difference. And when we're talking about that worthy ideal, it wasn't the vision, it wasn't the goals, it wasn't the objectives necessarily. It had to do with what matters. We are doing this because why? What really matters here? And I lived in Japan for a number of years, about 5 years. I've been working in Japan for 35, 36, 37 years now. I go over every year, and I teach a leadership program over there.
Yeah.
And they're incredibly gracious and proud people. Yeah, the lineage, the heritage, the legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that's in place here. So what matters? Pride, yeah, in large part. So it was a difference between motivation and inspiration. They were able to tap into something internal that actually, kept everything moving.
Right.
Everybody had a piece of the pie.
Yeah. It mattered.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
worthy ideal, the
Yeah.
worthy ideal, in pursuit of a worthy ideal. So Deming worked inside a model. Now, this is our model. It's not his model, but we're going to reference it because this is kind of how everything unfolded when we're looking at, everything, particularly Deming's philosophy that we're going to be talking about here. And he's got his
Right.
14 points, which is a management code, but the leadership side of this, the vision, strategy, and tactics, the why, what, and how. That's a given. You've got to have that in place. Yeah. And the vision is a placeholder for what's the near term, midterm, longer term goal.
Mhm.
But for the sake of what is underneath that, it gets built on that. So you've got, and then you land on a strategy. Okay, what seems to be the best pathway to get there, knowing that we're probably going to change it when we get going. And then we figure out the tactics. Where Deming worked and where Japan Inc., the major power brokers worked, was in the area of mindset. They were, they literally had, because of the war, a greenfield opportunity to start from scratch. I mean, I ran into this with Nokia when Nokia was starting out, particularly in third world countries, second and third tier countries, where there was no copper pots, the what they called pots, the traditional telephone, hard, cabled, copper wired services. A lot of these countries didn't have it, and they literally leapfrogged industrial companies or countries because they could invent this in a different way. Their mindset was different. Mindset uncovers possibilities, choices we've never seen before. You start noticing things that you've never noticed before. And Deming's particular power was in noticing from a process perspective. How do you actually sequence things and build into that process, into that sequencing, quality enhancements, quality metrics, literally from ideation all the way through to ta-da, and then after ta-da, into the delivery. It's one thing to get the product. It's another thing to deliver it where the customer goes, oh my God.
Yeah. And you end up in that state of it's I call it the pleasant surprise state. This is more than I anticipated.
Yeah.
You've delivered beyond expectation. And when you can accomplish that, you accomplish that through a lot of mechanisms. There you go. There's another power view right there. How do you deliver more than what's expected?
More than what's expected. Under promise, over deliver.
Oh, it's another one. After we're through with 14 Deming principles. So, but yeah, it's funny because that is true. It's funny you mentioned that, Blaine, because it is that, there were the systems and processes that Deming put in place in this. We talked about the first three today, really ground into the mindset, the imagination, looking at something. If I don't, you're talking about POTS, right? And old phone systems and, 66 blocks and punch down tools and all the stuff that we had, not to age ourselves, kids. But when you go back and you look at that and you have to think about it differently, not because you can, but because you must.
Yeah.
It's a different now mindset becomes now spirit, the intention behind it becomes very real. And imagination, that gateway between the two pieces, opens the door. And then 4 pillars, just at a high level. Trust is, we talked a little bit about trust coming in. Trust is that thing that we do together. Autonomy is the permission to try. Communication is our willingness to be vulnerable and be transparent and do it in a candid manner, not disruptive, harmful manner. Growth and innovation. Growth is what happens personally and within an organization. Innovation is that thing we were just talking about I don't have it, therefore I'm going to think of it differently. I'm going to use my imagination and I'm going to innovate. And then accountability is that commitment that we have to and with each other on how we communicate as we move towards our worthy ideal, towards our outcome and towards the worthy ideal.
Yeah, and that accountability piece was a major pillar in how Deming's work, the whole TQM. And when you think of, Scrum, lean initiatives,
right, all the children that came out of that.
Yeah, all of the stuff that came out of that, accountability is central to that.
Yeah.
The ability to just call a timeout. Just got to stop the process here.
Yeah.
Something's off. And people own that. Yeah.
Yeah, that big red button on the Toyota manufacturing line. Wait.
Burp. So the first three. Take it away.
So there's a little bit on Deming, who Deming is there, but we're going to talk about three. Create constancy of purpose. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about focusing on long-term success, not short-term profits. We're going to spend a little time today focusing on how do you adopt a new philosophy, creating a culture of quality. Remember, we were talking about for the sake of what? All these hook in so closely into the definition of leadership. They're all interwoven into that very, very closely. And then to cease dependence on inspection. In other words, that's another, there's a whole different phrase that goes behind that term inspection.
Oh, yes, there is.
Yeah. So you build quality into the process, and it's not about, and when we talk about it, we're going to be talking about building quality into the leadership process. So we're not relying on post-production inspection. We're not relying on, we're building quality into the leadership process so that we're not relying on micromanagement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is where we're going to play. That's where we're playing today.
So the invitation as you're listening here is to listen to what we're going to be talking about, these 3 points as well as the other 11 that we're going to be bringing in. They're typically applied in manufacturing scenarios, product development scenarios. Think of your leadership as the product that you're developing. So when you're thinking about this constancy of purpose, the philosophy that you need to operate out of as a leader, kind of what do you need to continuously monitor rather than at the end of the day going, well, I better go back and clean that mess up. I really shot myself in the foot. Yeah. What do you have things put in place as a leader that keep you from a qualitative standpoint? Part of what we do with leadership is we assess it through the lens of what we call elegance, minimal unintended consequences.
Right.
Now, we're always going to have consequences based on the actions we take, but we don't want to have to go back and waste a lot of time, money, and energy cleaning up after ourselves for something that could have been avoided had we been paying attention to the quality of our leadership right at the get-go. So these 3 things, they're the 3 that we're talking about today, applicable to any service or product that you're, offering, creating, producing. The one we're looking at here is look back at yourself. The power of you. How do you improve the quality of your leadership? Total quality management.
That's right. That's where we're leaving. So let's create constancy, right? It's not about, and we talk about this a lot. My favorite part is the back half of this sentence. Constancy is not constancy of purpose isn't just about realizing vision. Yeah. We got it. It's about shared meaning. Keyword, very important words. Shared meaning that unites the team, sustains culture, and multiplies impact. If there is no shared meaning, that's, if you've listened to some of the other power reviews or joined Blaine and I in other things that we do online, when we talk about shared meaning, without that shared meaning, there is no movement. There cannot be movement without shared meaning. And I love the fact
there'll be movement, but it'll be all over the place.
Yeah, true. That's a good point.
Come back here.
It'll be
Why'd you do that? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be cat herding. It's going to be scattered. But I love that whole concept around, Blaine, just that the whole thinking around it's shared meaning that unites the team.
Yep.
It's such a simple sentence that carries thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of weight.
Yep. And potentially millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, baby. It's funny. It's a lot of companies like we talk to companies all the time about scale, right? There is this scale, right? They want to scale and they want to grow and they want to go do that stuff. Without that shared meaning, you can't, there's no scale.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. You won't scale. Guaranteed.
Yes. Well, you might. There's an inverse scale that may occur anyway. And then purpose becomes the metric. So it's funny because when we talk about accountability, and I always say this, and I haven't said this for a while, in the 4 pillars, systems of accountability isn't Trello boards, Excel spreadsheets. It's not. Yeah, you need those things. You got to have them because you need a compelling scorecard so you know where you are. Done. But I love this statement which was purpose is the metric.
Yep.
It's like, not to give Deming, this is not to give Mr. Deming all the credit on all this stuff, but to give Mr. Deming all the credit. That's one of the things I think, Blaine, that's important for anybody listening to this is remember it's about being in a study, and being in study means you're studying multiple disciplines, you're listening to different people, and you're taking the parts of value. But this purpose, hence you're here with us because we're definitely a value. I mean, look at us. But purpose is the metric. And then when people know the purpose, for the sake of what, they move with confidence without waiting for permission, which is autonomy.
Yep.
And it's that web that gets woven together.
And it's the big red button on the Toyota assembly line. People, the art definition of leadership, co-creating, ownership has transferred. It's now not just my idea. It's now our idea. There's something here that I want to be participating with because there's something in it for me. On the assembly line, just as an example, things look a little askew. People, and it took some time to get people to this point, but they got to the point where they would slap the red button, stop the assembly line. Something is off here. They didn't have to have a boss tell them to do that. And it didn't wait until the defect showed up in the final product and they had to retool everything so moving with confidence. People move with confidence when they're familiar with what's being what they're participating in.
Right.
Yeah. They move with confidence. Think about, when you learned how to drive a car. Yeah. You probably weren't particularly confident, particularly if you learned to drive in a manual shift car.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like,
I was chuckling. Like, yes.
Yeah. Hey, I ran my dad's pickup into my uncle's rock garden when I was learning how to do this.
Yeah.
And they both laughed, thank God. But the idea of confidence comes out of familiarity. Yeah, in large part. Now, there's a mindset of confidence that a leader can imbue people with when they start. I trust you. I trust you to do the right thing here. I mean, this gets unbundled in some very interesting things. So when you're thinking about this from a leadership perspective, how do you imbue people with confidence? Well, question that you can ask yourself: how do they feel about themselves when they're in my presence? Do they feel empowered? Do they feel judged? Do they feel confident, or do they feel that they need permission? I mean, all of that's a function of your leadership style, what you bring to the table. And when people know the purpose, they move with confidence. And part of the purpose has to do with the relational quality. The purpose of our relationship is this, and it feeds into that. So this gets, there's a lot of permutations to this.
Yeah. It's really, there's a lot of different paths into it. One of the things as you're kind of heading down that path is It's innate in us. We all have to have a purpose.
Yeah.
It's who we are.
That's who we are.
We have to go home and we have to know that we have a purpose and that we did something that day that moves us towards that purpose. Whatever that purpose, and it's unique to every human being on the planet. Everybody has a different purpose. And it is that when people know their purpose, and it's the same thing in life. When an individual, you as a leader, and you know your purpose, you move with confidence towards it.
Yep.
In business, when your team knows the purpose, they move with confidence towards that.
We're the ideal.
It is funny how that works out. It's for the sake of what? It is the worthy ideal. And it's not, we didn't really get into it on that slide, but it's not the 10%. It's not the move more pallets. It's not more ship more stuff. Those are not the worthy ideals. That is
worthy ideal taps into spirit. It lights people up. It lights people up.
Right. It is that inspiration.
Yeah.
That thing that wakes you up in the morning. So anyway, so I love that. So adopting a new philosophy, right? When I was thinking about this and kind of getting ready for today, Blaine, I was looking at this thing. I kind of went, the very first word is awareness.
Yep.
It's like enough said.
Notice what you're noticing.
You notice what you're noticing. Awareness leads directly to an increase in the number of choices. And when I'm going to pass the ball to you on this to talk about choices and the law behind choices.
The law behind choices is the law of requisite variety. Yeah, and any system, the element in the system, and this is a very generic way of describing this, but in any system, and an organization is a system, any system, the element in the system that has the most response choices available to it will ultimately be the dominant element in the system. That's the law of requisite variety. So as a leader, just know that anytime you start introducing change, you're going to get pushback. I don't care how great the business case is. It perturbs existing relationships. It perturbs existing status quo elements. So people push back. People don't like to be uncomfortable. You need to have, as a leader, more choices about how you actually respond to the pushback than the pushback is, than the numbers of ways that people are pushing back on you. That sort of a thing. So when you're implementing change, this is essentially what you're looking at doing here, is becoming aware of what's the system in play, what are the likely relational dynamics that are being perturbed, upset, and how do I plan to address those? How do we plan to keep people on track with that? There's a philosophy around this that is steeped in movement, and understanding the philosophy has to do with the definition of leadership. The philosophical distinction here is influencing in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. Now there's a philosophy embedded in that about what an effective leader actually is. And then, you start looking at the psychology about how you go about doing that. And this is where the 4 pillars come in. And this is the tactical things. I mean, it's just the stuff that we do. Yeah. But all of this is about setting up the future. Leaders create possibilities in people's minds that can generate a new future state. And that future state ideally will not be a 4%, 7%, 10%, 15% incremental increase over what we had yesterday. Yeah. It's a possibility of something brand new that people's eyes go, whoa, let's do that. That's where that's the philosophical, platform that we stand on here. Yeah, and it's organized around choices.
It is. I like the next one too. With don't wait for change until things break, which is always what got you here won't get you there. Don't wait. But one of the things I think as a leader that's very important for those of you listening, right, from a process perspective, and think this is a leadership process. The next 3 words: create the conditions. Creating the conditions is co-creating. It's influencing. And are the things that you just talked about, Blaine. Yeah. Your role as the leader is to create the condition for constant conscious evolution, not to create constant continuous evolution.
Big distinction. Big distinction.
Yeah, canyons apart. That's a Grand Canyon gap, but you create the condition for that. And as a leader, a lot of times we have the propensity, right, to just, we're going to make change, we're going to jump in, we're going to change it.
This is where kaizen, comes in here. I mean, this literally is the kaizen approach: constant conscious evolution in service of a worthy ideal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially what, and that the front end of that sentence: don't wait for change. Don't wait to change until things break.
Yes.
If you're doing quality inspections, whether it's on your leadership or whether it's on your product or service, at the end of the day, if that's when you do the inspection, you're basically, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to watch where it broke. Okay, now let's go back and figure out where it broke. Now you got to examine the entire product line, the entire service line, the entire whatever it is.
Yes.
Set it up in the beginning so that you've got this whole process that can, that literally has created the conditions.
Yeah.
Constant, conscious, qualitative evolution.
Yeah. It's funny
And
you mentioned
it's a philosophy that allows for progress over perfection and experimentation over stagnation.
right.
I mean, it's
Right.
It becomes actually fun. Perfection. Deming wasn't interested in perfection. He was interested in progress. He was interested in continual improvement, because quality was what he was keying around. Conditional, continual improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all right.
My tongue
We've both only been talking all day long, so
yeah.
to other people and other stuff. But no, it's funny you mention that, because it's it is to your point. The capstone statement: shift accountability from blame to alignment, which is grounded in the word responsibility, and shift that blame, and then move it to we're improving together. So as we think about that, right, progress over perfection, that's what he was called to Japan for. Don't do it perfectly, but we need to make progress.
Yeah.
And we got to do it quickly.
Yeah.
Because things aren't going the way we thought they were going to. Right. So if you, as a leader, if you think about it in your business, and where you start to see stagnation and things, we'll talk about symptoms here in a little bit, but as you see stagnation in your business, the focus is not on, you're not focusing on progress. There's and you're not focusing on experimentation. Your business will stagnate. And therefore, when you stagnate, remember we talked about that other hinge, that declining curve?
Mm-hmm.
So then that thing happens. So
Scale this way.
The seesaw happens.
Yeah.
Somebody gets off if you ever remember as kids as seesaws, when your partner on the other end got off without telling you?
Yeah. Ouch. I actually ended up in the hospital.
Really?
Yeah. I had my legs underneath me, and the kid on the other end jumped off and broke a foot.
Oh, man.
I think I was in the second grade. That's something.
Wow. Well, you go. So we dredge up memories as we go.
Yeah. This is kind of like being raw. I mean, it's kind of, that pressure point just releases all kinds of memories.
Oh my God. That's funny. That's
but
awesome.
From a philosophy perspective, we are improving together. That is a philosophical come from.
Yeah.
As a leader, we are in this together. I'm not telling you, I'm not the boss. It's not a command and control. I may have the title, but we're in this together, and we're improving together.
Yeah.
And the improving piece is not just in the process in which we're engaged, but it's also, are each one of us improving as we do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. People want to grow. They want to improve. All of this comes into play here.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. You mentioned title. You may have a title. It's like going to Denny's and try to buy coffee with your title.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know who I am? Well, it doesn't get you a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to get coffee, and a buck will get you a cup of coffee. But anyway, if it's still a buck, I don't know. It might be. Anyway.
I don't know where it would be a buck, but
I don't know. I can't think of anybody. And then cease dependent on inspections. So this is, going back to where we were, leaders cause So leaders cause movement. You can cause movement in multiple fashions. You can cause movement by telling people what the hell to go do and hoping they go do it. Or you can cause movement through coordinated, meaningful activities that are co-created and work with leaders cause coordinated movement through meaning, through that worthy ideal. And it goes back to that. This is another way of saying the definition of leadership without the influencing. Right? But as a leader, and as you lead your company, lead your teams, wherever you are in your organization, that is what you are doing. You are causing movement. That is your purpose.
Yeah, if things aren't moving, things aren't happening.
Yeah, and if things aren't happening,
and things will stop happening if you are the inspector. You become the bottleneck. You become the bottleneck. And they will come to you going, well, what do you think we should do here, boss? Let your team improve the process. They're the ones that are closest to the work. They know where the machines are, getting crimped. They know where the process is getting crimped. They know, they know this stuff because they're having to deal with the pissed off customer,
right?
Or the supplier that isn't happy, or that guy down the assembly line that didn't like what I did up on the other side of it. I mean, all of that comes into play. Let them fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an old Harvard Business Review article that I would give this out this thing got published a long time ago. Who's got the monkey? Don't know if you remember that one. Who's got the monkey?
Not familiar with that one.
It's a metaphor, and the way that it worked was, people would come to you as a boss. They would come to you and say, "Boss, I got a problem." That's the monkey, and so they try to give you the monkey. They try to give you the monkey. Now, you look around and all of a sudden you're managing a zoo. You got about 17 monkeys that you're trying to wrangle because everybody came to you and said, "Boss, I got a problem." And you went, "Well, let's see what we can, let's see what I can do to fix it." Wow. The assumption was you're going to fix it. The article was organized around who's got the monkey appropriately. Who's got the monkey is the person that actually is charged with fixing it. You want to have the monkey going to the person that is closest to the problem and empower them, let them know they've got responsibility and accountability,
right,
to wrangle that monkey. Yeah, keep it out of your room.
There's a saying I've said for many, many, many years: "Not my monkey, not my parade." And I'll pitch you dollars to donuts. I'm going to go find that. Who's got the monkey?
I've got a copy of it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Royalty free, Harvard. I'm not paying a royalty on this.
Sorry. Had we written it, it's kind of like with my music, had the Eagles known how to write music, that have written what we do. So then the next, hold the system accountable, not just the people. Design it so quality is the default, not the exception. And when you think about this, and I want to lean in on this sentence just a little bit. Hold the system accountable. Let's remember what we're accountable as in this context is not a punitive action.
Right.
Accountable is not a punitive. Hold it accountable means I'm going to hold the system to a measure, to a standard, to a process. It is not a punitive. It is not it's not blame. It's not retaliation. It's not none of that. But you want to hold the system to account, and you want to build. I was talking about this last week in my podcast. One of the things is you want to have an accountability system that supports the individual, so that you build a system so that they can thrive. It's a system that gives them the power to thrive. So hold the system. Did you build a system that enables quality, leadership quality, the individual quality? That quality is the default. That's where we live.
Yep. Which kind of takes best practices and puts them on the side a little bit here, because oftentimes best practices are organized around a mean. Yeah, it's kind of, where's average? And average, anytime you've got an average number, you got a whole bunch below, but you've also got a whole bunch above. Nobody seems to aspire for that top tier. Okay, if there's an average here, what's the best performance that average is representative of when you take the entire universe? Let's have that be our default, that top number. Have that be our top number. Don't go for the low bar.
Right.
So, and that's where trust your team to do it right the first time. If they've got a purpose, if they understand why we're doing this, they will want to excel. And part of this has to do with mindset. Building a system that does not assume failure. You're actually assuming best.
Yes.
You're assuming best in your hiring process, in your training process, in your onboarding. You're assuming best. People will live up to your expectations.
Yeah.
You set the ceiling on where people are going to go, and they
Yeah.
will bump their heads on it. And then they'll choke down because they don't like bumping their heads on it.
Exactly.
Make it as high as you can make it.
I'm going to avoid that. But it's funny because that's so true, Blaine, because when we build systems, most of the time, if you go to, from the old kind of the operation standard, systems are built based upon the fact that something is going to fail.
Yeah.
It starts there.
Yep.
Rather than this system is going to succeed, and here's where we're going with this system based on success.
Yep.
And I love that. Just trust your team. Let them do it right the first time.
Yep.
Now, are they going to do it right the first time every time?
Nope. Nope.
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Not a chance in hell.
Really comes. That word trust gets to be really. Do I trust myself to handle the consequence of trusting them? That's where you empower. That's where quality becomes the default. Accountability is built into this. All of this thing around, I trust you to be a quality employee. I would trust you to be a quality partner. We're going to stub our toes.
Right.
It's just a sign that we need to talk.
Yeah.
Or in the process, did we break down? And we've got a whole communication model around that if anybody's interested.
Oh boy. Yeah, just let us know. You can drop us a note on LinkedIn as you see these come across. So, but yeah, very much. So let's talk about symptoms, and we're heading towards the gate.
Heading toward the gate here.
Heading towards the gate. So short-term wins, long-term confusion.
Yeah.
I dealt with it yesterday on a phone call with a client. It's like, wait a minute. And they were, wait a minute, what are we doing? I could tell by the look of it was a Zoom call, and you could see the faces going, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we? If you're hitting goals and not following your North Star, you're running your purpose, right? Your North Star, you're for the sake of what? Your worthy ideal, then your team is confused. Yep. They're going to feel used, abused. They're rid hard, put away wet, to coin an old saying. They're not going to, remember we were talking earlier about there's a need for all of us to feel value.
Mm-hmm.
We are not going to meet that intrinsic need. It's going to become transactional, and you will turn your team. You will see symptoms: high turnover, poor Glassdoor reviews. You'll see the symptoms will appear, and it will happen quickly. So anyway, number two,
constant firefighting and rework. When we were putting this together, I did a lot of work with in the steel industry back in the late 1980s, and we did a big consulting deal with Bethlehem Steel.
Oh yeah.
And Bethlehem is now out of business. It got absorbed by, I think, U.S. Steel. And anyway,
which has now been absorbed. Yeah,
now they got absorbed. But I remember we were doing some work with their maintenance personnel, their millwrights. And these guys, and we're talking about mindset here, and a leader influencing mindset. Their mindset was, we're firefighters. I mean, that horn blares, that whistle, that shuts down. There's a breakage. We go out there and we fix that. And boy, are we good. And they were incredible at fixing these, 14-ton machines, just jack it up and shim it in. They were magical. Well, we were working with them on preventative maintenance. That was one of the things because we were looking at, how do we avoid these breakdowns? Well, we're firefighters. We're not, avoiding breakdowns is not what we really shine at. I mean, that's our identity, who we are.
Yeah.
is based on breakdowns occurring.
Wow.
So I mean, it was almost Sisyphean, trying to roll a big rock up a hill, trying to get these guys to understand that preventative
Sure.
maintenance was in the best interest of everybody concerned. And oh, by the way, it will impact your identity. Okay. So you talk about relational perturbation. Who am I? Where do I belong? Quality breakdowns, they would be caught too late. And then those fixes were incredibly expensive. Incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
So being able to actually shift from a qualitative perspective, the mindset of people so that they're beginning to pay attention to the entire process, including in this part, just to continue this example, maintaining this equipment in a very thought out, methodical way that would mitigate any potential breakdowns occurring. And so we knew what the pieces were. I mean, but it took
That's cool.
a year and a half, 2 years to get that in place. And these were smart people. There was no question about that.
Oh yeah. But that's it's mindset.
Yeah, mindset. It's mindset.
It's that shift, because you're changing their identity.
Yep. Changing their and when you're looking at TQM, when you're looking at lean, scrums,
Right.
I'm the boss. They're doing stuff without me. Yeah. It's kind of like I must hasten after them, for I am their boss. No, let them do what they know best to do. Give them the framework, and they're going to do it. So constant firefighting and rework begins to be something of the past.
Yeah. And then we have blame over learning. Mistakes are punished instead of explored. Yeah. So when you can read exactly, we could just close the lid on that. Let's just close the lid on that. When it's blame, right? When this is going on, or it is, first of all, it means generally, if it's blame, it means that you're not dealing with a team, that you're dealing with a micromanaged organization who's trying to shift something that happened to another team. Monkeys. I'm going to look up the monkeys. So they're trying to pass off that monkey. But what'll happen, you'll see inside of your organization is there's a symptom that I've seen it inside of organizations I've been in as a leader, and I've seen it in organizations that I'm coaching. And it is that when you see innovation, when things stall because people, I don't know, we tried that last time and it didn't work, and Bob was a moron and I saw him get fired, and if I do this, I don't know, there becomes fear, angst, stalling, innovation stops because people want to play it safe.
Yeah. And another way of thinking about this, if we're looking at continuous improvement, there's a win in, that people are actually truing to. So another way of saying playing safe is when people are playing safe, they're actually playing not to lose.
Correct.
They're playing not to lose, because blame is, if I lose, I'm going to get blamed for something. Who's accountable for this? Whoa. Yeah. Who wants to take responsibility for this project? Not me. Yeah. Blame is embedded in that.
Wasn't me. It was Bob.
It was Bob. Bob did it.
Bob did it. He did. And then last but not least, number 4.
Control, micromanaging, masquerading as leadership. It's kind of like, I've got to be visible. I've got to be telling them what to do. No, you don't. You do that, trust evaporates. They feel second guessed. And again, fear of doing it wrong, because all of a sudden you show up. Well, you're going to get, the principal's coming, go back to school. People have got mindsets about this stuff. And it's oftentimes, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's because it's legacy stuff. It's stuff that we grew up with, which is why people resist. I mean, they literally resist taking responsibility, owning accountability, stepping up and pushing that red button on the Toyota assembly line, because we've got leaders that are commanding and controlling, micromanaging the process because the process hasn't been set up. They don't trust the process, and they don't trust the people in the process. And as a consequence, everything grinds to a very slow halt.
Boy, does it. There you go. So Deming's first 3. There's Deming's first 3.
And I thought we had a review slide there. We don't, but
we don't.
We
That's
don't.
it. We go right to the.
That's
right
the first 3 out of 14. In the time we've got left here, the 4 or 5 minutes that we've got left before the top of the hour, we have an announcement. We're doing these Power of You shows every week. And I think we've got something like 15 or 17, no more than that. I think, we're bumping close to 20 right now.
It's a boatload.
And we're going to, I can't imagine not doing this. I do an office hour show with our mutual friend, David Meltzer, and we're on episode 746 approximately. We lost count some time ago. But my podcast, I've got over 200 episodes of my podcast right now. So when Dolan and I start doing something, there's consistency. We show up. We're showing up every Thursday with something about leadership. The entire purpose of the Power of You is to bring anything and everything that can consider to be applicable to the activity of leadership to the table. And just have fun talking about it, explore it. Hopefully there's some nuggets that you can take away. But we started archiving these, and we have got something available for you now.
Yeah.
So we're actually really excited about this. You can go to this site here, leader.blainebartlett.com, Power of You. And don't forget the hyphens, Power of You. But it's the entire library. We've got over 70 years worth of combined experience in this domain of leadership, as CEOs, as COOs. We both have consulted to and coached executives around the world. So, we're assembling all kinds of stuff here: decision-making, trust, the 5 lies of leadership. That was one of the very first ones that we did.
Yeah.
So there's a library that we're assembling, and we want to make them available to you. So you can go here and you will be able to access, for a very nominal fee, the continual material, resources that we're putting in.
The curated library.
A curated library. Yes.
Curated library.
So this is available, and we're just now launching it. It's we literally have just opened the door on this. So gain access to the ever expanding library of leadership content. There's the URL. We invite you to take a look at it. You're going to find the price for it is very, very nominal. We're adding new material every single week. These are done free on a live basis. So the current week is always going to be available, but then they immediately are going to be going into an archived library that we're assembling here. And we will eventually have them curated by, think of a file drawer here, by
topics and categories,
keywords and that kind of stuff. So you're going to be able to get in there. But right now we've just got, I think about 20 videos in content that we're putting together there. Yeah.
So I was looking last night, and there's a boatload of them. I just know and that's not a technical term, but there's a boatload of them.
There's a boatload.
And do go check out the link. Look, here's why this exists. You can come see us on LinkedIn or accidentally stumble upon us. One of the things that happens in doing that, one of the most important things about being a leader is developing the habit of constant learning, and then having those resources available to you, because you're going to hear it once, you're going to hear it twice, and the second time you're going to hear things you didn't hear before.
Yep.
And you're going to take away nuggets. So Blaine and I debated this, because we started this with the intention of, we're just going to put it out there free and we're going to make it available. The challenge with that is then it's into the universe, it's once into the ether, and it's never found again. Our job is to help empower you as a leader. That's why this is Power of You. This is not Power of Blaine and Dolan, although we could probably use a little power, but this is Power of You. So as you go through this becomes a referenceable library that you can go back. And our intention, and Blaine said it, our intention is to make this better and better and better and better and better. It's more important to make this available to you today than make it perfect.
Yep. In the spirit of
Deming. Yeah. Rather than wait for perfection, it's to make it available.
Yeah.
When you go to the website, for the sake of transparency, the cost of 52 weeks actually, it's not even that, it's lifetime value. So once you're in,
lifetime access. Yeah.
as long as we're doing this, who knows how the hell long. But right now, even if we did it for you, it's less, it's about $4 a week, I think, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So
for what we have in there right now. Yeah.
Yeah, give or take a nickel. And that's only gonna improve over time.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you, go just invest in yourself
And your team.
Yeah, and share these. Make sure these are resources that are available to you. They're not, they're not limited to you. Go use these things. Use these things to help your team, your business, your family, your life. Go do that. So I will also jump in and echo in. Tools are available. Please do participate. You'll hear us talk about this more and more and more over time. So there you go.
So folks, thank you for listening to this new episode of The Power of You. We've got a couple more. We've got 14 points, Deming points to cover. We covered the first 3 today.
Yes, we do.
At least 3 more sessions, possibly 4, depending on how we parse it.
Or how long we talk. I mean, it could be.
There you go.
It could be all of that. Well, Dr. Bartlett.
Dr. White.
Always.
We will see everybody next Thursday at 12 o'clock noon Pacific time here in Seattle and LA.
We'll be here. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.